Good morning, everyone. During Alzheimer's and Brain Awareness Month, the Alzheimer's Association is highlighting common stigmas and misconceptions people have about the disease and other dementia. 6 million Americans are living with Alzheimer's. Danya Bacchus introduces us to a North Dakota man and his wife sharing their experience.
Dale Rivard was diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment 5 years ago. He was 59 and a prosecutor.
The first 6 months is when I deteriorated quite a bit. It has affected my speech a lot. And as the years have progressed, my short-term memory is about the same.
Dale and his wife Mary Ann want other people to know what it's like living with early-stage Alzheimer's and other dementia.
You get that diagnosis, and it's pretty devastating. There's 2 ways to go. You can say, I'm done. I mean, it's so easy to sit in front of the TV, turn it on, and wait to die, or you can still fight and keep active.
Monica Moreno with the Alzheimer's Association says the goal is to reduce the stigma and isolation patients feel.
When people hear the word Alzheimer's disease, they immediately think of someone in the end stage of the disease. But the reality is that individuals living with Alzheimer's disease are still vibrant and can engage and live quality lives.
When we were both working, we hardly went anywhere except on vacation, but now he's all mine.
The couple travels and spends time with family. And they sing. With the chorus for people with dementia and their caregivers, the Unforgettables.
I have problems speaking now. When I sing, there's nothing. I could be in my high school choir all over again. It is just wonderful.
Dale says he wants to do the things he enjoys for as long as he can. Danya Bacchus, CBS News.
Well, this is expected to be the busiest summer travel season in years. More than 70% of Americans say they plan on taking at least one trip. But as gas prices are soaring prices are soaring from everything from gas to airfares, travelers are getting hit with some serious sticker shock. Chris Van Cleve is near an amusement park in Arlington, Texas.
Tatiana White's high school graduation brought family from Georgia, Maryland, and Connecticut to Daytona Beach, Florida.
Did getting here cost you more than you thought it would?
Oh, yeah.
But vacation inflation has them spending more for just about everything. Evelise Cruz came from Hartford.
What was your budget? Where do you think you'll end up?
I mean, I wanted to keep it anywhere between $2,000. I'll probably be close to $4,000 by the end of this.
Domestic airfare is costing flyers like Cruz 34% more than 2019. Airbnb prices are up 11% this year, and the average hotel room costs nearly $171 a night in May. That's $40 more than a year ago. Rental cars have soared a stunning 70% during the pandemic.
There are just so many expenses that people forget about when it comes to travel. But I do think the biggest pain point for people right now is those car rental prices.
Surging travel demand, coupled with increasing costs being passed on to customers, is stretching travel budgets. NerdWallet's research finds it also is costing more just to do things on vacation. Eating out costs 7.2% more than it did last year. Tickets for movies, theaters, and concerts up nearly 6%. For Leonida Rivera, the real budget killer? That all too familiar pain at the pump.
It's just hard. Like gas, $5, like crazy.
Nearly 43% of Americans say economic concerns are now prompting them to reduce travel or cut their vacation budget.
I was going to go to Antelope Canyon. I was going to do Yosemite, Yellowstone.
We found Sean Sherman topping off his RV with more than $200 of diesel. Work is driving him to New York this time, but the cost of fuel put the brakes on a family road trip.
I just said, look, we're putting it on the back burner for now, and it broke some hearts, but that's the reality.
So what can you do? Book early and be flexible on your travel dates and times when it comes to planning the trip. Think about renting the car first and then finding the hotel and airfare. And speaking of that rental car, it is almost always cheaper to go to a downtown location or somewhere away from the airport because airport locations tend to add fees. Chris Van Cleve, CBS News, Arlington, Texas.
All right, one of the biggest threats to the food supply is invasive insects and plants that can damage and destroy entire ecosystems. Jonathan Vigliogli takes a look at one innovative plan hatched from inside a lab.
Nestled in the foothills of western Colorado, inside an unassuming laboratory, is a nursery of killer bugs.
This is the tamarisk leaf beetle, Macrocentris amcyclivorus, or MAC for short.
They are exotic insects raised by specialists like Christy Gladham with the Palisade Insectary and then intentionally set free.
Once they're released, then they can spread naturally, grow their population, and provide control.
Biological control against invasive species of bugs and plants that are threatening the nation's food and water supply at an annual cost of $26 billion, according to the USDA.
When you reintroduce their predators from where they originally came from, you're tapping into a millennia-long evolutionary arms race.
The insectary hatched in the 1940s when international trade began accidentally importing the invasive species. It's one of 3 facilities in the country providing public lands and organic farmers a pesticide-free approach to eradication. Brant Harrison has been growing organic peaches for decades.
There's a lot of problems that we organically cannot deal with in a major way. It'd been kind of the savior of the fruit growing industry.
This isn't the kind of gardening that we think of usually.
It's one of the strangest things.
Gladham says each killer bug is studied in controlled field settings for up to 20 years and monitored by the federal government with a reported 100% success rate.
These get very thick.
The insectary is now focused on 2 emerging threats: yellow thistle, which has invaded 25% of drought-stricken California, and the ash borer, which is killing trees and helping fuel mega wildfires.
Using nature's way to combat human impact. Jonathan Vigliotti, CBS News, Palisade, Colorado.
Coming up, she was a fearless fighter in the civil rights movement. Now Fannie Lou Hamer is being honored in Mississippi. We'll show you how when Mid-Morning returns. Welcome back. There's now a marker in the city of Winona honoring the life and work of civil rights leader Fannie Lou Hamer. In June of 1963, when Hamer and 6 other women were arrested for sitting at a whites-only restaurant in Winona, they were taken to a city jail and severely beaten there. Nearly 60 years later, the town has marked the spot where that jail once stood. Our Stephen Pempo has more.
They were tortured in those jails.
Jackie Hamer Flakes was overcome with emotion when she saw the plaque marking the spot where her mother and civil rights icon Fannie Lou Hamer was beaten inside the Winona City Jail in 1963.
It's not easy knowing that my mother was brutally beaten in that jail. It's not easy knowing that they really disgraced her.
Hamer and 6 other women were returning from a voter registration program when they were arrested for sitting at a whites-only restaurant in Winona, then taken to the city jail, where police and inmates beat her, leaving her with lifelong injuries that included kidney damage and a blood clot in her eye.
Just imagine having health issues and then to be beaten by people with billy clubs until they were tired.
In 1964, Hamer attended the Democratic National Convention to gain recognition for the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party and advocate for voting rights for African Americans. She shared the story of her beating inside the jail, which helped bring national attention to racism in Mississippi.
I think it horrified the country. I don't know that it horrified white Mississippians, but it horrified the country to learn that a black woman, 45 years old, could be beaten and tortured like this.
But event coordinator and Winona resident Vicki Roberts-Ratliff says that so many people don't know this happened in their town.
When I found out in 2011, I went into my shower and I cried profusely. I begged her to forgive me, forgive us for not acknowledging her.
So Roberts-Ratliff and her group Bridging Winona placed the marker at the spot where the jail once stood so that everyone can see it and remember.
I think it's a step in the right direction. It's one step, just with the reckoning and coming together.
It's an honor that now the truth is out. People here in this town will know what happened in their city.
In Winona, Stephen Pimpo, WCBI News.
Well, this is a celebration of freedom. For the second year, Juneteenth will be recognized as a national holiday, but organizers of festivities in Columbus have been celebrating Juneteenth long before it became an official holiday. Our Desmond Matthews talks to one of the coordinators as they celebrate their 25th Juneteenth event.
It's a day that marked freedom for slaves. Juneteenth celebrates the anniversary of the last Confederate state to end slavery. It was in Texas on June 19th of 1865. Communities across the country have been holding celebrations to commemorate it for years, but President Biden signed a proclamation making it a national holiday last year. Coordinators over the Lowndes County celebration are excited it's now official.
From the Emancipation Proclamation to the signing of the proclamation of Juneteenth is approximately 158 years, and that's a long time. But I think the signing of the proclamation is an acknowledgement that slavery was bad.
District 5 Supervisor Leroy Brooks is one of the organizers for the annual Juneteenth celebration. On Friday, June 10th, the celebration kicks off with a Juneteenth Freedom Ball at the Trotter Convention Center. Then on June 17th, just a couple of blocks over, at Scott Park, the Juneteenth Festival begins. Gates open at 6 p.m. and vendors will be available. Brooks says the reason he wanted to start and continue the event is because of his personal experiences.
I grew up in a time where I saw firsthand discrimination. I saw the adverse impact of racism. I've seen it head on, and I could have used it as an excuse for not doing some things. I used it as a motivation to try and effect some change.
Through the last 25 years, Brooks has seen positive and negative change in the city, but it never detours him from his goal of helping those in the community, especially the youth.
Juneteenth celebration is a call for duty. There's a lot of issues in our community, and I think that people need to use this as a launching board to begin to talk about what is it we can do to make our community a model community. It's not.
And there will be an itinerary posted on our website of the Juneteenth events coming up in Columbus. Coming up, from empty lots to flower gardens, we show you how a couple in San Francisco is beautifying spaces in their city. All right, we're back. The series Rebuilding America showcases people and communities that are finding creative ways to build a better world, one project at a time. This morning, we're introducing you to a San Francisco couple spreading some flower power. On their first date, they planted an aloe bush, and that was the seed that inspired a project to plant native wildflowers in empty lots across their city. Lilia Luciano got a lesson in so-called guerrilla gardening, which benefits both nature and us.
With pink water guns adapted for seed dispersal.
Oh, wow.
This is us.
Behold my street art.
It is like street art. We met up with Shalico and Phoenix McGee, who've been leaving their colorful mark on the streets of San Francisco for the last decade.
This is so beautiful.
This is what happens when the entire seed pack goes to bloom.
There's so many colors. It looks like my outfit.
Yeah.
Shalico, who runs a production studio, and Phoenix, a landscape contractor, are seeding a little joy, one planter at a time.
These are fun.
The self-professed guerrilla gardeners plant native wildflowers in forgotten spaces, on streets, in vacant lots, even the grounds of the local police station.
These are beautiful. They're so high. Yeah, they're popping off.
You bring your shaker like this,
Yeah,
and the cops don't say anything?
They say thanks for the flowers.
Aww. What is guerrilla gardening?
We plant native pollinator seeds in neglected areas of land, and it's just a nice way to make a forgotten about space, full of flowers. And you can see the pollinators all flying around in here.
Supporting pollinators, of course, is beneficial for farming, but on the streets of this concrete jungle, the thrill of a successful seed bombing is real.
I think people think it's like fun and like rebellious, and it's getting them excited about planting.
With 250,000 followers on TikTok and over 5 million likes,
Look at the different seeds in there.
they've discovered a whole bunch of passionate planters on social media. And it turns out sowing these flowers is good for the soul.
We take a break from our computers, or we take a walk at sunset, and we sow native seeds on our walks. We'll forget that we sowed a place up with seeds, and then we'll turn a corner 3 months later and all of a sudden you'll see all of the plants.
California and then a hyper-native Bay Area mix.
Now the pair is all about spreading the gospel of the seeds. What's been the most rewarding for you?
We're speaking at schools and universities, and we met with this troop of Girl Scouts.
Put them in the shaker.
And taught them about native wildflowers. They dressed up as bees, and we taught them about pollinators and just the benefits of that. And it's just introducing the next generation to this and, sort of getting them in touch with nature.
They were so excited. We gave them all little shakers, and then they were running around with the shakers and dressed as bees. It was really beautiful.
It all stems from their desire to brighten up the city and bring smiles to their neighbors' faces. Do you guys still get very excited every time we do this?
Every time. It never gets old.
What's it feel like to walk by and see this?
There's always something that we've planted blooming. So it's just kind of heartwarming. I feel like you can feel it. People call it our magic trick, but it's nature's magic trick. We're just helping it along.
Lilia Luciano, CBS News, San Francisco.
Words of wisdom. CBS's James Brown gives graduates some life lessons for the journey ahead. We'll listen in when we come back. Welcome back. For high school graduates this year, it has been less pomp and more circumstances in some cases after more than 2 years of the pandemic. CBS News special correspondent and NFL Today host James Brown recently went back to his high school where he was a standout basketball star. He reflected on 4 key lessons he learned from his parents, teachers, and coaches. This spring, JB shared those lessons with graduates from the School of Education and Communication at American University in Washington, and now he's sharing them with all of us. Let's listen in.
My parents made it clear that the 5 of us kids had to understand that education and academic excellence were the
foundation stones for success in the game of life. The first lesson I shared was explaining my early education experience, which in fact was a tale of 2 types of educators. One who in the 5th grade saw me reading a book titled, "So You Want to Be a Doctor?" Without hesitation, she told me that kids like me don't do well in math and science, and I should choose another profession. Crushing words never to be forgotten. Words are powerful, potentially life-altering, especially at a young age and coming from an authority figure. Rejection is a powerful weapon against one's self-worth, and those seeds planted in the soil of unbelief can produce a harvest of failure. In fact, I did struggle academically until the 7th grade, when thankfully both my homeroom teacher and French teacher encouraged me by making it clear that I did have gifts and talents and they would help me. And those gifts would be developed with good old-fashioned hard work. That was right in line with what my brothers, sister, and I always heard from our parents, who were high school graduates with PhDs in drive and determination. The lesson here is that the best educators use words that inspire, edify, and exhort. High expectations from educators do yield fruit. Lesson 2, I addressed a concern that the future journalists had about how they would fit in this rapidly changing media environment. And I emphasized, excellence always stands out. To have an insatiable appetite for learning, to pursue a variety of assignments, and to be inquisitive. Heavens, I did a gymnastics event with Olympic gold medalist Mary Lou Retton, and I asked her why the men didn't do routines on the balance beam like I saw the women doing. Well, she sheepishly didn't answer the question, assuming I would figure it out pretty quickly. And I did learn to ask better questions after that. The third major lesson was to establish the importance of having an excellent foundation.
How you doing? So fine, sir. How are you?
American military hero General Norman Schwarzkopf, in a speech to corporate titans, stressed that in his research of why many leaders failed despite their impressive skill sets was due to their lack of virtues, specifically character and integrity.
Roosevelt cheered as President of the United States.
That brought to mind the quote by former American President Theodore Roosevelt, who said, quote, "To educate in mind and not in morals, is to educate a menace to society. The fourth and final lesson, it's not just about winning, it's the way you win. Something I learned here at DeMatha Catholic High School from my coach, Morgan Wooten. He finished an incomparable 46-year career with the winningest record in the country and became the first high school coach to be inducted into the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame. And just like Pro Football Hall of Fame coach Tony Dungy and the legendary College Football Hall of Fame coach Eddie Robinson, the common thread between these uncommon leaders is that they never used profanity with their players. They all ascribed to the belief that the most effective four-letter word you can use and model to ensure success in any profession is L-O-V-E, love. Because love is not boastful or proud or rude. It never gives up. It never loses faith.
Because love is more durable and it will always last. And now I encourage you, go out and knock them alive. God bless you.
He says, go out there and knock them alive. I like that. We'll be right back to wrap things up. All right, be sure you stay connected with us. We'd love to hear from you. We will see you back here next time.